Donald Trump's presidency marked a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His decisions and rhetoric often deviated from traditional diplomatic norms, sparking both praise and condemnation from the international community. This essay will delve into Trump's approach to the conflict, focusing on his policies towards Israel and his stance on Hamas. Trump's presidency ushered in a period of heightened tensions and uncertainty in the already volatile Middle East. By aligning himself closely with the Israeli government, he alienated many Palestinian leaders and Arab nations. His policies, often seen as favoring Israel, further complicated the peace process and raised questions about the United States' role as a neutral mediator. The Trump administration's approach to the conflict was characterized by a departure from the two-state solution, a long-standing framework for peace negotiations. His decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy there was a stark example of this shift, drawing criticism from many world leaders. In the following sections, we will examine the key elements of Trump's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, analyzing the motivations behind his policies and their implications for the region and beyond. One of Trump's most consequential decisions was recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moving the U.S. embassy there in 2018. This decision upended decades of U.S. policy and international consensus, which considered the city's status to be determined through negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. Trump argued that the move reflected a historical reality and fulfilled a campaign promise. He asserted that Jerusalem had long been the seat of the Israeli government, and that recognizing this fact was simply acknowledging the truth. He also framed the decision as a way to break from the failures of past administrations and jumpstart the peace process. However, the decision was met with widespread international condemnation. Critics argued that it prejudged the outcome of peace negotiations and undermined the United States' role as a neutral mediator. Palestinian leaders saw the move as a betrayal and a sign that the Trump administration was biased towards Israel. The embassy move had immediate and far-reaching consequences. It sparked protests and violence in the Palestinian territories, further escalating tensions in the region. It also damaged the United States' standing in the international community, particularly among Arab and Muslim nations. Trump took an uncompromising stance against Hamas, the Palestinian Islamist group that controls the Gaza Strip. He consistently labeled Hamas as a terrorist organization and accused it of perpetrating violence against innocent civilians. Trump's rhetoric on Hamas was often harsh and unforgiving. He condemned their rocket attacks on Israel and accused them of using Palestinian civilians as human shields. He also criticized Hamas for its authoritarian rule in Gaza and its refusal to recognize Israel's right to exist. Under the Trump administration, the United States cut off all funding to the Palestinian Authority, citing Hamas's influence within the organization. This decision had a devastating impact on the Palestinian economy and humanitarian situation in Gaza, which was already dire due to an Israeli blockade. Trump's stance on Hamas was in line with his broader approach to the Middle East, which emphasized counter-terrorism and a hard line against groups deemed hostile to the United States and its allies. He saw no room for dialogue or negotiation with Hamas, believing that the group posed an existential threat to Israel. Despite the controversies surrounding his approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Trump did achieve a significant foreign policy success with the Abraham Accords. These agreements, brokered by the Trump administration in 2020, normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. The Abraham Accords were hailed by the Trump administration as a historic breakthrough and a testament to the president's deal-making abilities. Proponents argued that the agreements would foster greater stability and prosperity in the Middle East by creating new economic and diplomatic ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors. However, the Abraham Accords were also met with criticism. Some argued that they did little to address the underlying issues driving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and could even exacerbate tensions by further isolating the Palestinians. Others questioned the long-term viability of the agreements, given the lack of progress on the Palestinian front. Section 5. A polarizing figure criticism of Trump's approach. Trump's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict drew sharp criticism from human rights groups and former U.S. officials. Critics argued his policies favored Israel, undermined peace, and worsened tensions. Recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and supporting settlements, they said, closed the door on a two-state solution. Section 6. Media frenzy, shaping public perception. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of Trump's approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As with many other issues during his presidency, coverage of Trump's Middle East policies was often polarized and partisan. Conservative media outlets generally supported Trump's approach, praising his strong stance against terrorism and his commitment to Israel's security. They often portrayed him as a bold leader who was willing to challenge the status quo and stand up for America's allies. On the other hand, liberal media outlets were more critical of Trump's policies, arguing that they were biased towards Israel, counterproductive to peace, and harmful to the Palestinians. They often portrayed him as reckless, uninformed, and more interested in scoring political points than in finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The media's coverage of Trump's Middle East policies reflected the broader political divisions within the United States and the international community. It also highlighted the challenges of reporting on a complex and emotionally charged conflict in a fair and balanced manner. Section 7. Lasting impact. A shift in U.S. foreign policy. Trump's presidency undoubtedly had a significant impact on U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. His decisions and actions represented a departure from the policies of his predecessors and raised questions about the future direction of U.S. engagement in the region. One of the most notable aspects of Trump's legacy is the Abraham Accords. These agreements, while controversial, represent a potential turning point in relations between Israel and the Arab world. It remains to be seen whether these agreements will lead to a broader regional peace, or whether they will ultimately prove to be more symbolic than substantive. Another significant aspect of Trump's legacy is the further deterioration of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. His decisions, such as moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, were seen by many as favoring Israel and undermining the possibility of a two-state solution. It is still too early to say what the long-term impact of Trump's policies will be. However, there is no doubt that he has left his mark on the Middle East and that his presidency will continue to be debated and analyzed for years to come. Section 8. A complex path forward. Finding common ground. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most intractable conflicts in the world. Finding a lasting solution requires significant compromise and addressing root causes. One key challenge is the lack of trust between the two sides. Strong leadership and international support are essential for peace. Section 9. Conclusion. The quest for peace continues. Donald Trump's presidency marked a tumultuous period in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His unconventional approach, characterized by bold pronouncements and a disregard for diplomatic norms, upended decades of U.S. policy and generated both praise and condemnation from the international community. While Trump's supporters lauded his unwavering support for Israel and his efforts to forge closer ties between the Jewish state and its Arab neighbors, his critics argued that his policies favored Israel at the expense of the Palestinians, undermined the peace process, and exacerbated tensions in the region. As the dust settles on the Trump era, the quest for a just and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians continues. The path forward remains fraught with challenges, but the need for a resolution has never been more urgent. The international community must remain engaged and committed to finding a solution that upholds the rights and